Democracy. Even though British and Americans have enjoyed democracy for over 2.5 centuries now, for most of the third world it's still new. And for some, it's still a pipe dream. Being something as new as democracy, there's a lot of glitter associated with it. So much that it's really easy to miss its dark underbelly. We are still learning what the shortcomings of democracy are. It's not a perfect system yet. It is much like a frame without any panels or walls or windows and without any partitioning of into rooms. It's just a frame around a society. That's what democracy is at the moment. Three shortcomings, major shortcomings that I can point out right now. One, minorities do not have a voice in democracy. Two, democracy gives majority of population a very strong voice, but that majority has a very weak action. Three, democracy actually legitimizes oppression of minorities. Now what I mean by these three, let me explain this in detail, and also why I say that democracy at the moment is just a frame without panels, walls, doors and windows, and without any partitioning. First thing, majority vote decides who's going to be the government, and that government decides the laws for a society. All well and good as long as there are no sharp divisions in the population. But when there are fundamental differences between different groups of population, that democracy is not a good model for minorities to be a part of with a majority, because they will not get a voice unless there are very special and specific protections for minorities. It's easy to see how it works in a democracy like India, where there are different population groups divided by religious lines as well as regional differences. People think that all Indians are alike. I can tell you that's not true. At a very basic level, there are people from places like Ladakh and eastern states in India which are of a different race, they are more similar to they are Mongol, what we call in India as Mongoloid race, but which is considered a profanity in Western society, and a slang term. So basically, that's Asian race, and rest of the Indians are different. And then again, there are very fine differences between South Indians and North Indians, and then Kashmiris and other North Indians. So India is a very diverse country, even though it appears that it's same. And in that, for India, there are very special provisions in Constitution to give protection to different minorities, including special provisions for religion. But even then, if like it has happened recently, some of the laws which have come up because the majority Indian population has one particular set of beliefs, they actually clearly say that minorities cannot have a say in the lawmaking, which is wrong, which is only gonna be a source of problem, because that means that you are cutting minorities' voice out of democracy. So if you are going to say to a minority that come, let us live together in a democracy, that minority has no rhyme or reason to be a part of that democracy without extra protection. We Indians love to blame Jinnah for creating a separate Pakistan, but the reason Jinnah created separate Pakistan was because he was a very intelligent man. He knew this shortcoming of democracy, and he knew that Muslims will always be in minority in India, and it will definitely lead to problems in future, which is why he created a different nation of Pakistan. It's a fundamental problem with democracy, which still needs to be worked with. Which is why I say that it is just a frame. It's a new building. It's a new building under construction. Future is a new building, and democracy is just the outside frame. We still need to create different rooms inside that building and then fit that building with panels and walls. Let me go to the second deficiency, which is about how the majority of the population in democracy has a very strong voice but a very weak action. Majority of people, what is the biggest difference between 99% and 1%? What makes 1% 1%? 1% is 1% because it is made up of individuals who do what people making up 99% don't do. They take risks, they make bold decisions, and it's not easy to be a part of that 1%. It takes a lot of guts, determination to be a part of that 1%. It takes a lot of sacrifices to be a part of that 1%. It's not easy. Anybody cannot be a part of that 1%. Most of the people in 99%, they would rather have a stable life with a stable job that gives them money and gives them shelter. While 1% is the one which will take the risk, put their entire fortune at risk, and then benefit from that. That's how you become 1%. Now let me say one thing about the Western scholarship, which did a lot of good work during the Enlightenment era. Western scholars or European scholars, they wrote European society out of feudal system. But I would like to say now that the same Western scholarship is now writing itself back into New World Feudalism. What was feudalism? All sorts of opportunity in that society was associated with land, and land was owned by a few. Everybody else was a peasant, a worker working in that land, or a small trader, which we call small businessman today. But in today's world, opportunity is not bound to land only. Opportunity is also there in market. And what do we have in market? There are corporations who are taking over market, who are taking over lands. Western scholarship is busy justifying everything in the name of capitalism. I call capitalism as the current version of capitalism as degradation of capitalism. I call it corporate communism. But we can also say that it is the beginning of New World Feudalism. So Western scholarship is actually writing the society back into New World Feudalism, where everything would be owned by corporations, and what do 99% want? Just stable jobs, just like the peasants. There's no difference. But that works for 99%, because all 99% want is a stable life. They may dream big. Everybody has big dreams. Everybody wants to be a millionaire or a billionaire. Everybody wants to be a big star. But only 1% of population has the real guts and balls to go for their dreams. And many go for their dreams as well. But most of them give up. Only 1% population sticks with their dreams and does the hard work to get where they want to get. That's the difference between 99% and 1%. Now, when you think of democracy, even though the majority has the voice, look at the political parties. Why do people feel cheated after every election? Because the politicians go to the majority for their vote and then work for the minority. You get the vote from the 99%, but it's the 1% which determines the policies. Now, it's not bad. When 1% benefits, 99% also benefits, because jobs are created and so on and so forth. The only time problem arises is, which is happening now, when the greed of 1% grows beyond bounds, then they start sacrificing the interests of 99%. Then it's all about the interests of 1%. And that's when society goes into problems. And the problem with 99% is, or the problem with majority is, even though majority has the strongest voice, they can decide who will be in the government, but they always want someone else to do the work. 99% is not which goes out of its comfort zone to fix if there is anything wrong. They want someone else to take responsibility, which is why people, whenever public movements start, sharp-minded people abuse the opportunity. They fool people into believing that they are going to work for them. They might do a little bit, but then everything goes back to what it was earlier before that. Which is why I say the majority has a strong voice but a very weak action. Its action is just to vote and then hope that someone else will fix what is wrong, because they don't like to go out of their comfort zone. The third drawback is that democracy actually justifies oppression of minorities. Now think of the first limitation: minorities do not have a voice. Let me take the example of Sri Lankan Tamils. The problem was that it's easy for people of majority not to feel something to be wrong, but minorities are really very sensitive about issues that affect them. So the Sri Lankan Tamils felt discriminated by the Sinhalese majority of Sri Lanka at that time, and that's how LTT emerged for the liberation of Tamil community. But Sri Lanka was an independent nation, and it was a democracy. Sri Lankan Tamils had the right to vote and elect their representatives. That is the legitimacy of democracy. You are a free country. There is no one outsider ruling you. You have got right to vote. You are free. The democracy is legitimate. But if a minority which does not have a voice in democracy, if that minority wants to go their independent way, then they are fighting against a legitimate regime, and then they are illegitimate, which is what happened. So ultimately, we all know what happened. Now we may set up 10 different United Nations committees to see whether there were any abuses in Sri Lanka during the war. But the ultimate truth is that the minorities movement was illegitimate. Who has the rights to that land? Do the minorities who actually live on their land, do they have any right to their land? Or that land rests with a notional state? Just because there's democracy and there's one big land mass and there's democracy on that land mass, the minorities lose their right over their own land. If they want to fight for their land, they are illegitimate. And the government has every legitimate right to crush any rebellion. A rebellion is in fact terrorism in modern day and age. So democracy actually legitimizes oppression of minorities. So minorities do not get a voice in a democracy, and they cannot get out of democracy as well. There's a lot more that I can say, but this is just enough to give you some food for thought. So think, people, think.